time for the final word in sports all across the state. You're listening to Sports Talk with your hosts, Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. You've been waiting all day, so join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
I think he's done a great job with owning college women's basketball, and hopefully we can cut us a slice Monday night.
If it was easy to win a national championship, there'd be a lot of coaches in America that have done that, and there aren't. So it's hard. It'd be pretty hard pressed to find anyone that's come as far as they have since she took over at South Carolina. So she's done it the right way. She didn't fall into this. She's earned it.
We wanted to get further than the Sweet 16. I mean, we're upset we lost. We go in every game expecting we're going to win. But I'm unbelievably proud of our team. We got picked 13th in the league. That's crazy. So I think that's fire. That was what threw in the fire for us at the beginning of the year. And next year they're going to have great players. We're going to be a great team. And to be honest, if they're doubted, you want to see them back on this route again.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. After a crazy, crazy weekend of sports, we are here to talk all about it with you on this Monday night from downtown Columbia. Phil Kornbluth, Will Pelagic back in studio, and the Professor Tom Hayes, all put together by Brian Leonard. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. So the question to toss out and to get reaction from everybody here in the first hour of the show, can South Carolina pull off the upset tonight against Connecticut?
I think they'll come closer than they did to the 25-point game that they had in the regular season, but we're talking about a wooden-esque dominance from UConn, from what they do. And while South Carolina is playing a lot better now than they were then at the time that they played UConn, and if you remember, that was part of a real murderous stretch where they had to go through a team in Missouri that was ranked in the top 15 at the time, top ranked at the time, Mississippi State, who hadn't lost, and of course UConn. It's certainly something that was it was a hard stretch to go through.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they'll be better prepared for this stretch. The one thing that is encouraging about playing UConn at this level is that there are no surprises. There's no shocks. You don't necessarily have to go through a refresher on the scout of UConn. You know what to bring to the table. I just don't know if they have enough pieces defensively to be able to shut down UConn's game plan.
I don't think it's the pieces defensively. I think just to think that South Carolina plays a loose ball game. Usually when they win big, Corn, they create a ton of turnovers. Even when they win big, you cannot turn the ball over against UConn. You won't see it again. It'll be a layup, fast break on the other end. So I think if South Carolina lacks anything in this game to really challenge Connecticut, it's its propensity not to protect the basketball.
Exactly. But they make you turn it over, like you said. 0-6 all-time against UConn. First time these teams have met in NCAA tournament play. We'll see if that makes any kind of difference, because now they're really playing for something. Before, the other 6 games, basically exhibition games, good regular season matchups, at least on paper. Most of them were not good matchups on the court. The Gamecocks have not played close games against UConn. Yes, in 17, they lost by 11, and in 16, they lost by 12. But earlier this year, they lost by 25, and I think back to that game, guys, and what stands out to me is just the athleticism of UConn was too good for South Carolina, constantly beating them to the loose balls and to the what would be UConn's offensive glass. That's what they've got to change.
And the other part of it, too, that I think, and this is something that Dawn Staley said in the immediate aftermath and even after the Mississippi State game as well, is the fact that Asia Wilson, I think, tried way too hard to take over that game and be the number one focal point. There wasn't enough trust in her other teammates to be able to make an impact. There wasn't the kind of trust between her and Alexis Jennings and her and Ty Harris and her and Danya Cliney. There wasn't that inherent ability in there for those players to lean on each other. She kind of felt like she took the brunt of everything. But I also think, conversely, Corn, if South Carolina is going to win this game, they're going to need a transcendent performance from Asia Wilson. I think they have absolutely no chance if that doesn't happen.
They need from her a Bill Walton versus Memphis performance in the NCAA I think that was a championship game in Walton's senior year.
Yeah,
Remember, he was like 19 of 20 from the floor, 44 points. It was unbelievable. They need, you're right, that's a good word for it. They need that kind of just superhero effort. You look at the comparative stats, there's not a single key stats between the two teams that South Carolina is better than UConn. I mean, from points per game to points per allowed to field goal percentage, free throw percentage. Okay, South Carolina makes about 4 more free throws per game than UConn does.
But you got to compare their stats with the league they play in versus the league that South Carolina plays in. Aisha Harris will be any key tonight in my mind, because I don't think there's an athlete on UConn's team that's quicker than she is.
Right.
The problem with UConn is their length defensively at all 5 positions. They may not have a player as tall as Asia Wilson, but if you look at the other 4 spots, and comparatively speaking with the center position, they compare favorably of being just long and lean at every position. And that's what they do. They cut off any type of scoring, either they're playing a zone or playing a man-to-man defense.
South Carolina will have the best player on the floor when Asia Wilson's on the floor. I don't think anybody will sit here and dispute that. You might be able to argue Katie Lou Samuelson, who was also honored along with Asia Wilson today among the AP first-team All-Americans. But the one thing is that UConn puts together a better collection of 5 than any team in the country. And I think even, any team that had 3 of those 5 would still have the best of anybody in the country. So the fact that you can put a Katie Lou Samuelson along with a Nurse, along with a Nafisha Collier, players like that are head and shoulders above any of their peers on other teams, that's what makes UConn so hard to beat.
And their bench is deep. I mean, they've got, 7, 8, 9 coming off the bench. You could start for a lot of teams across the country. They're deep, they're talented, and the coaching is ridiculous. Ariyama's record at UConn, 1,026 wins, 135 defeats.
Very smart basketball, man.
In
very
30,
smart.
I just like to see him coach a men's team.
I know
take
you do.
over the UConn men's team and see what you could do.
Again,
that's already been taken.
I know.
Part of the reason why he makes it so good is because of the fact that he has the pedigree and he has the program built. I'm not saying he can't coach the men's team, but I mean, part of the reason is why he is such a good coach at UConn is because he's built that program from the ground up.
And I guess the other question to ask is what's important for women's basketball to get people to watch? If UConn gets upset 2 years in a row from a quest at a national championship, or do people who look at the women's game want to match up between the team that knocked them off last year, Mississippi State, if they're successful against Louisville, will be 34, 35 and 1, and UConn will be undefeated.
Well, I still think it's a disservice to the sport to not have this game being played in Columbus at the Final Four instead of it being played where it is now in the Elite Eight. No offense to the folks in Albany and no offense to the fact that it's a regional round, but the NCAA did its fans a disservice by putting this game earlier on. They could have changed it. It could have been a lot different, but in my opinion, I wish that it was going to be played in Columbus.
All right, coming up on the program, your phone calls after the break. We will hear from Dawn Staley, some comments from yesterday, the final press conference for the teams, and a little bit of breakdown from her of tonight's opponent, Connecticut. We'll reflect on Clemson's loss to Kansas in a game where the Tigers fell behind. They fought their way back in. You give them credit. They did not give up, but their inside game really kind of let them down. Their interior defense against Kansas. We'll hear from a couple of the players, and wrapping up the season for the Tigers, a very good season for them. Football-wise, Will Muschamp, we'll hear from him, and also Dabo Swinney. Muschamp, the Gamecocks had their big scrimmage on Saturday, and the Tigers are back at practice today, coming back from spring break. We'll hear from Dabo Swinney, and we'll also catch up with Monty Lee and Mark Kingston. After the baseball weekend, things are really going badly for USC. One of the worst starts in modern Gamecock baseball history is what they're going through right now as they sit in the basement of the SEC after 2 weekends of SEC play.
Too many holes in the boat for them. You just can't plug one up and expect to even survive.
And I went to the Carolinas Classic All-Star basketball games in Wilmington, watched the women win and the South Carolina men lose. We'll hear from the men's coach, Tim Morris, and talk about that game with him tonight here on Sports Talk.
Do you have any questions or comments about my cuisine from over the?
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
All right, we welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. As you're dialed into us all across the state of South Carolina, whether you're listening to us on your radio heading home, perhaps you're watching us on our Periscope via Twitter, Sports Talk SC. Maybe you're catching us on our website, sportstalksc.com, on the TuneIn app, on our stations on the TuneIn app. We thank you for joining us here on Sports Talk and being a part of what we do here every night in the state of South Carolina for the sports fans of South Carolina. Your phone calls in a moment. We'll also address some of your comments on Twitter. Let me hit a couple of the stories of the day I want to share with you. Will alluded to this. USC's Asia Wilson, first team AP All-American, announced today. So congratulations to her.
She's the 7th player all time to be named a 3-time first team AP All-American.
She's had another great year at South Carolina, 22.5 points, 12 rebounds, 3.3 blocks per game. Congratulations to her for that award. Final Four odds. Villanova is your overall choice at 1-1. Michigan is 5-2. Kansas 13-4, and Loyola going in at 9-1.
Go Loyola!
I like Michigan. in that matchup. They are a survivor of a team. Remember, they had to hit a buzzer beater to advance. They rolled through the Big Ten tournaments, won that championship. I don't know, but Kansas looked awfully good.
Kansas did. They looked awfully good. And the thing about Kansas, and this will probably make Clemson fans a little angry, but Clemson was probably the most complete team in that pot of four, because of the fact that they had not only experience, but they had tournament experience. See, the thing about Clemson, and the thing that we're seeing also about these teams, is that you're seeing guys who played together. You're not seeing these freshmen one-and-done laden teams. And I think that's what did in Duke, because, I mean, you think about the regional final on Sunday night, which was a classic, but what did them in? You had a bunch of guys standing around watching Grayson Allen, and Grayson Allen missed like 3 or 4 very, very key shots in overtime, and of course the one that ended regulation, because all he did was play hero ball with the basketball to end regulation.
Well, I think Loyola, the difficult thing for them is John Beeline. He's not in the second game. He's got the first game, which means he's got a week to prepare. Michigan has a lot of great shooters. They space the floor, and all that backdoor cutting that Loyola does, Beeline's going to cut that off.
But Loyola has divine intervention.
And but that's the point. People don't understand that sometimes divine
intervention. You just talked all over your movie clip.
Yeah, but here's the deal.
Nicely done.
People have to understand that divine intervention also means you may be set up to show how classy you can fail.
Did you not hear the movie clip?
Yes, I've heard it before.
Well, but I mean, he played it. You want to hit it again?
Sure. Go ahead.
Me and the Lord, we got an understanding. We're on a mission from God.
That's why. That's why Loyola's going to win.
There's the deal. The mission may be to fail.
You spent all day preparing that.
I did.
No, but here's the deal.
5 minutes before the
People
show.
have to understand that sometimes the Lord has mysterious ways to say things, so their mission may ultimately be to fail. Doesn't have to be to win. Could be to fail.
Okay. Clint Boyer didn't fail today. He won the snow-delayed race at Martinsville, his first win of the season. Kyle Busch finished second, Ryan Blaney third. Then it was Martin Truex Jr., the pole sitter, Kevin Harvick fifth. Rest of the top 10, Joey Logano, Alex Bowman, A.J. Allmendinger, Chase Elliott, and Brad Keselowski. A couple of other things. The baseball rankings. Clemson coming off a weekend in which it took 2 of 3. So they get swept at home by State, lose to Coastal, then go to Louisville, and win 2 out of 3. This is just crazy.
You could argue they might have had sweep of that series if they didn't have the rain out on Saturday.
Possibly. So the Tigers are 8th by collegiate baseball.
Easy.
8th
by collegiate baseball.
12th by Baseball America and D1 baseball and Perfect Game and by the coaches. So they're 8th and 12th. Coastal Carolina is 20th by collegiate baseball, 22nd by the coaches, 24th by Baseball America, and 24th by D1 baseball. Coastal on about a 7-game winning streak.
Just don't take yourself to Ibiza. That's all.
Meantime, USC got swept at Georgia. It's really going poorly for Mark Kingston. And one thing we can talk about tonight, and we will, is why is South Carolina struggling this year? You know, Mark Kingston strikes me as a very smart baseball guy. He seems to have a lot of the questions and a lot of the answers, and he relies a lot on the sabermetrics, and he seems like a very smart baseball guy. So I don't think it's that. The players really like him. Is it the talent?
Yes.
Well, I went back and looked at Perfect Game's rankings of the recruiting classes over the last, going back to 2011. Now, that doesn't pertain to this year's team. If you go back just to the years that would affect this year's team, so you're talking about from 2018 through 2014, 5 years, right? If you have any fifth-year guys, I'm not sure. Anyway, 2015, South Carolina's recruiting class was ranked 4th in the country. In 16, they were ranked 7th. In 17, they were ranked 8th. The 18 class is ranked 14th. Even the 2014 class, if you have any fifth-year seniors, was ranked 6th in the country.
Aren't you the one that always says don't care about the rankings?
I do, but I mean, people do care about the rankings. This is what they look at. Now, I know that not everybody signed in those classes who impacted those rankings came to school.
Yes,
They
that's the
signed
other
baseball
part. That's the other part
contracts.
that's very misleading about the baseball rankings, because you can sign a bunch of guys,
Right.
but if they end up going pro, that ends up
But-
being still part of your ranking.
I'm assuming, I don't know for sure, I'm assuming that the perfect game rankings are based on the signing class and not the result of what happens after the baseball draft.
Well,
Maybe they
I'm not sure.
I don't think
I'm not
they
sure how that's
reclassify.
Well,
I don't know how that's adjudicated.
As I said before, and I say it again, it sounds trite, but to bounce back toward the top, you have to hit bottom first. But that's not the key. First of all, you out without your ace this weekend.
Yes.
Plus, you can see body language in that team. Psychologically, they wait for the other shoe to drop. You notice that they're playing like they're not having any fun. And when you do that, I don't care what kind of talent you have, you're always looking, wait a minute, how can we blow this game? How are we going to do this game? As I said before, to have any success against Georgia, you had to get to Georgia's bullpen, which they failed to do except for Friday night, but they only got to the point where they tied the game, never took the lead.
It's like having a bad shooting streak in basketball. You have to shoot your way out of it, and realize that the Gamecocks have to hit their way out of it. I mean, they're leaving, a lion's share of people on base, and they're not getting good pitching. And when you have those things combined, that's how you lose baseball games.
Well, their team batting average is 269. Their team ERA is 4.7,
which is about
something.
It was about a full run higher than it was at this point last year.
And they got injuries. Stokes was hurt again over the weekend. Hopkins was hurt. We mentioned that Hill was out. So this is not a good time. Now, they get Davidson tomorrow night in Columbia. Then Tennessee comes to town for 3 on Thursday, and we'll see if South Carolina can break the losing skid. Let's jump to the phones real quick. Let's go to Hank in Columbia before we hit the bottom of the hour break. Hello, Hank. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing fine, Corn. I was calling just because I was listening to not disputing that tonight will be a tough game against UConn. And it'll take a good effort by our girls, a balanced effort. I don't think it takes a perfect effort. I don't think it takes Asia scoring 40 points. I think it's more like an effort in the SEC tournament where you get your front line scoring 50 points, and then you have balanced shooting from the back. But I did want to I watch girls basketball a lot, and I was hearing some things y'all were saying at the beginning that are kind of incorrect. And not being disrespectful, but just one, UConn doesn't play but 6 players. They have this long bench, but Gino doesn't trust them. And so even if you go back and you kind of pull up their stuff, they sub the Azure Stevens, the girl that transferred from Duke, off the bench. And that's about it. Every once in a while, they'll pull this Megan Walker girl that was off, but he's been very kind of disgusting with her. So he goes with 6 people. One. Also, South Carolina's front line will really cower against her. The Clemson girl, 6'3", is on the wing, but the 2 frontline players are 5'11" and 6'1". They try to use their quickness and athleticism. So the interesting thing is going to be how well the post play and get into the flow of the game.
All right, Hank, we got to hit a break. Thank you. Great points when you're part, and we'll follow that up with Don Staley's view of tonight's game coming up in a moment.
I got to look right at the thing, so I can't not look at it, guys.
Back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, Monday night edition from downtown Columbia. Busy show, a busy weekend, of course, with everything going on from football to basketball to baseball. Going to touch on all of it here. Got some recruiting for you as well coming up. USC picked up another commitment over the weekend from a junior college defensive lineman you've probably never heard of unless you are a fan of Sumter High School. But he is a guy that Will Muschamp and Lance Thompson they think they can take and develop and make into a very strong interior defensive lineman. More on that coming up for you here in just a little bit on Sports Talk. Also some comments coming up from USC women's basketball coach Dawn Staley. Tip-off a little more than a half hour away. Thought we'd give you a little taste of what she's thinking going into the game against UConn. Before all that, I want to remind you that about 2.5 million children and adults suffer traumatic brain injuries every year. In March, which is running out, is Brain Injury Awareness Month. So to learn more and to help the Brain Injury Alliance research, educate, and advocate for survivors of brain injury, please visit www.biaofsc.com. That address again is biaofsc.com. Hank was with us a moment ago, and he's talking about the depth of UConn and checking out the numbers on UConn. Yeah, basically they go with their starting five a great deal, but they've got three coming off the bench who average 10 minutes or more. So they go about, realistically, you could say they go 7 deep, maybe 8 if the situation calls for that.
But their top 6 are about as good as anybody has in the country, and that's what it is. And the one thing that they did do in the first game is that they collapsed on Asia Wilson, and she got really no help from anybody in that game. And I think that's what's going to happen is that Asia is going to be able to make the most out of her opportunities when she gets single coverage, especially if it comes from a weak side pass. And the other players on the team have to be able to hit shots when she hits them off of a collapsing D.
Yeah, Harris is tremendous at taking that mid-range jumper on the pull-up. She has to do that tonight. Herbert Harrigan has to rebound for South Carolina. And they have to have their other bigs do some work as well. So Asia can stay fresh into the fourth quarter, because what you want to do is be close when you get to that fourth quarter, and you got a chance to maybe steal one from UConn. Mississippi State was able to do it last year.
Well, this was the game that people thought we would see last year in the national championship game. Mississippi State spoiled that. Then USC went on to win the national championship. I'm sure UConn is sitting in the locker room thinking, okay, we blew it against Mississippi State, and you got your chance to win the national championship, so payback is hell tonight. And then again, South Carolina's got a bow its neck, not be intimidated, and play like the defending national champion. So yesterday, the teams got together one final time with the media up in Albany, New York, and here is some of what it sounded like with Dawn Staley.
It's a simple question. I don't know if it's a simple answer, but how do you beat UConn?
You got to play the game. Got to play the game. I serve an amazing God, and I got to tell you this story because I was walking out after scouting UConn yesterday, and I guess a UConn fan, he started yelling at me like, you're next on Monday, and he's like, giving me the thumbs up, and I'm actually thinking it was a Gamecock fan. So I turn around and almost give him the thumbs up, like, so I just, I don't know why this came to me, but this came to me. I said, on Monday night, you're going to believe that there's a God. And that's what we're going to go with.
Dawn, you mentioned not only this year when you played UConn, but the past years you played UConn, how crucial it is to keep them from going on a run, not score 8 or 10 points in a row. Have you mentioned that again to the team as they prepare for this one?
Yeah, I mean, UConn makes you pay a lot of different ways. If you turn the ball over, they're going to make you pay. If you miss a shot and it comes off the rim, they're going to rebound and push it and make you pay. If, you make a basket and you slow to get back, they'll make you pay. So it's a lot of different ways in which they make you pay. I think our players are very aware of the style of play and what UConn does best. I think it also helps that we've played them, over the past few years. And you can't just play them one game, and think you're going to have success. You have to have the experience of playing them in a lot of different ways at home, away at their place. And now we're playing on a neutral site, something that we haven't done. So hopefully, this is the trick.
Based on what you've seen for UConn in your earlier matchup this season and in scouting throughout the season, what challenges does UConn present to you?
They're just a team that's on the mission. I think they're probably more hungry than they've ever been because they didn't win a national championship last year. But also that also puts them in a place in which, is unfamiliar to them because they're used to, being the defending national champions. And, I think someone asked, one of our other players a question about, doing what we did to Mississippi State, which is to keep it close and put them in unfamiliar situations that they haven't been in a lot this season. You have to put them in those situations. You have to keep the game close. And hopefully, something else kicks in to where they're not as sharp as they normally are.
Coach, it seemed like yesterday you were running with some combination of 3 forwards on the floor a lot. And Lily was talking about being more comfortable as a ball handler and a guard and being on the perimeter like that. So I guess just kind of how much, especially given how size is one of the areas where you have an advantage over UConn, how much are we going to see that tomorrow?
Well, we've been playing the big lineup for ever since the SEC tournament. I think Lily is getting more and more accustomed to playing on the perimeter. And, I mean, she gives us speed. She gives us, another passer, another ball handler. And she's fearless, as fearless can be. So we will definitely play that lineup at some point, and utilize her quickness and her ability to take people off the dribble.
All right, Dawn Staley from the press conference yesterday leading into tonight's game. She makes some great points. If they can just get UConn out of its comfort zone into the fourth quarter in a tight ball game, UConn has not had many tight ball games at all this season. Now, Duke played them to a 13-point game, I think it was, and that's considered a moral victory. But if they can get them into the fourth quarter in a tight ball game, who knows? Maybe the experience of winning it all last year, maybe UConn will crack in some form or fashion, play uncharacteristically. Maybe this could be the night that South Carolina answers. They answered the big question last year, but they couldn't answer the question about beating UConn.
Right.
And this is a golden opportunity to do it on the biggest stage.
It's something that, it's hard to predict it without having seen it. The matchup on paper looks like it should favor, not necessarily favor South Carolina, but it looks like it should be closer than what it was in the regular season. I mean, South Carolina probably played one of its worst games of the season and probably had its worst 2 games of the season back-to-back, outside of maybe the Tennessee game where they didn't have Asia Wilson. But those 2 games between UConn and Mississippi State were probably the 2 worst games they played all season. You can also maybe throw in the Missouri game on the road that they played also the month prior. But you can't beat UConn at anything less than your A game. Anybody who thinks that you can't beat UConn less than their A game hasn't watched UConn play. They're just so clinical with the way they run offense, and their defense really had South Carolina stymied last time around.
One of the keys that South Carolina has to prey on in this ball game is that UConn is not hitting the 3. I will say this: if they're hitting their threes, they're impossible to beat. If they start throwing bricks, it's got to be one and done. You have to explain that, look, if they throw up a 3, no offensive rebounds. 1 rebound, and let's go with it.
But what's the other thing about South Carolina's game in this tournament? They've played some ugly basketball. They've won. It's better to win ugly than lose pretty, but they have turned the basketball over.
But that's the way they play. They like to ugly the game up.
They have not necessarily played what is considered the brand of basketball that got them as far as they did last year.
And a message for our friend Danny in Florence, the Duke fan. You know you lost yesterday, Danny. And you know what that means, Danny? As we roll through the 2017-18 basketball season, it remains unchanged. The last team from the 2 Carolinas to play in the men's Final Four comes from the state of South Carolina and not from the Tar Heel State. Think about that, Danny. Wow. And we'll be back. All right, my insult to Danny didn't come out right.
Oops.
I meant to say,
you know,
between Duke and the Carolinas, South Carolinas, the state of South Carolina, USC has been to the Final Four more recently than Duke has. That's what I'm trying to say.
Is that what you were trying to say?
The only question I have,
because I forgot that North Carolina won the national championship last year, which would only make Danny even more angry, considering his hatred for North Carolina.
I understand quickness to the ball. I really do understand that. But I also understand you don't teach size. How in the world did Kansas out-rebound Duke 46 to 24?
It's because Marvin Bagley's soft.
I mean, my goodness. But I called it right when we had the Voice of Kansas on. I asked about Malik Newman, and he took over.
He did. He played great.
Hello, Newman.
All right, so let's wrap up Clemson and their stay in Omaha. The performance against Kansas was a kind of an uneven one for the Tigers. They had that stretch there where Kansas was beating them inside time and again. Rebounds, good inside looks to Azubuike. At times, he was just overpowering Thomas inside. Still, they fought back, and in the last couple of minutes, they made it a respectable game for them, losing by 4 points. And it's the best Clemson season in many, many years, and I imagine that the returning players, and there'll be enough returning players to kind of give them the nucleus to build on this for next year.
There is, but it does mean the end of two very important careers, I think, for at least rebuilding the foundation of Clemson basketball. Gabe DeVoe and Dante Grantham. Grantham's career had already ended early this year, if you remember, because of the ACL injury, but we had just talk with him. But before that, Gabe DeVoe addressed the media in the locker room following Clemson's loss to Kansas.
Yeah, I think it bumps it up a little bit. Give fans some new excitement going forward with the program, and leaving a blueprint and a standard for the guys in the locker room coming back. Just giving them motivation. I mean, I hope this hurts so I can get back here next year.
How do you balance the pride in what you guys did and the hurt from tonight's loss?
It hurts now, but I feel like maybe even tonight or a few weeks from now, you look back and feel how special this was for us. I mean, I'm gonna really miss this team, and it's a special group of guys.
You learned the most about this team throughout this run?
I mean, we continue to fight. I feel like in the first half, I feel like we got knocked on our heels a little bit. We came out a little timid. But in the second half, we continued to fight. I really try to just keep the group going, and we had a chance down the stretch, a few missed shots, and it was a different ballgame.
What were they doing down the stretch that made you struggle so much in the first half? Just not you, but you as a team.
And we just had careless turnovers. We had a couple careless turnovers in transition. It really hurt us. A couple offensive rebounds here and there. If we take that away, it's a whole different ballgame.
How fulfilling was this run, even though you weren't able to make it with them on the floor?
It was very fulfilling, but we wanted to get further than the Sweet 16. I mean, we're upset we lost. We go in every game expecting we're going to win. But I'm unbelievably proud of our team. We got picked 13th in the league. That's crazy. So I think that's fire. That was wood threw in the fire for us at the beginning of the year, and every day we worked at it, whether it's weights, conditioning, and on the court. So we kept battling, and to be honest, this is the result. I mean, and next year they're going to have great players. We're going to be a great team, and to be honest, if they're doubted, you want to see them back on this route again.
What did this team show you after you got down with the injury?
Our motto is Clemson grit, and that's the number one thing I think they showed me: passion and perseverance towards a long-term goal. I mean, people kept doubting our team that we wasn't going to be as good as we are, and stuff like that, and they kept fighting every game for 40 minutes, every single game. And tonight was a prime example. The game was getting out of our hand, and we kept fighting, and we cut it to 4, I think, late. We cut it to 4 late. So our team never gave up. We never gave up throughout the season, and I'm unbelievably proud of it.
How much has this experience and team meant to you? I know you couldn't finish the second half of it, but you never gave up, never quit on your team, and you were there for them the entire way.
It means a lot. I mean, even when I was playing, we still had work to do. I mean, it wasn't secure that we was in the tournament. So I'm unbelievably thankful for my teammates that let me experience a March Madness. And I wish I could play with them again, but I can't. So I'm unbelievably proud of my team.
Those are the words of Dante Grantham. Before that, Gabe DeVoe. Also, Mark Donnell playing his final game for Clemson. He told me also afterwards that he wouldn't change anything about his Clemson experience. You found that also very fulfilling.
And if he'd have stayed at Michigan, he'd be in the Final Four. But anyway,
he didn't have any eligibility left. He was a graduate transfer, wasn't he? Yeah,
he had 1 year left, right? Yeah,
I thought he was a grad transfer from that. That's why he only played 1 year.
Right, you still have 1 year left. He graduated early. He graduated early from Michigan.
Okay.
So that's how it works. He put in his 3 years at Michigan. He could have stayed for a 4th year at Michigan, but he graduated early and decided to leave. But anyway, that reminds me of what Brownell said back when all this was this going into the ACC tournament, I think, maybe just after, when he said, with a healthy Grantham, this team would have been really special.
Yeah,
would have been really special because he is a valuable guy. He is a flexible guy. He can help you inside. He can help you outside. And he was having his best season at Clemson after being really down last year. What a comeback year he had. And unfortunately, it was cut short in the Notre Dame game by that knee injury. DeVoe went out in a big way, 31 points, 10 of 17 from the floor. Our poll question this week at SportsTalkSC.com is, it's always one of the favorite poll questions of the year when we do this, and it is, who is the basketball player of the year in South Carolina? Now, I didn't want to go with multiple players off of a team, so I went with Marquise Reed from Clemson.
Yeah, that was the wrong pick. You should have been Gabe DeVoe.
Well, I mean, he was the All-ACC selection off the team. You know, he was second team All-ACC, so that's what I went with.
I would have gone with Gabe
Well,
DeVoe.
you didn't do the poll. I did the poll. You want to do the poll? You can go in tomorrow and you can change it and put him in there.
Would love to.
But the poll is my poll.
Can I write him in?
And Marquise Reed was the All-ACC. If Gabe DeVoe had been on the All-ACC team, he would be the guy in the poll.
Two straight sports in a row. You put the wrong Clemson guy in there. You should put Dorian O'Daniel in there for Clemson, but not.
Anyway, the others in my poll, which is the official poll, Joe Cheeley from College of Charleston.
Good year.
Fletcher McGee of Wofford.
Good year.
Marquise Reed of Clemson. Devin Sibley of Furman. Chris Silva of USC. And Aja Wilson of USC Women.
That's the winner, by the way.
Oh, yeah. She's got 77% of the votes.
That's who I would vote for.
But you know,
Marquise Reed has 12.2% of the votes. Everybody else is under 5%. Silva at 4.9% and McGee at 4.2%.
No offense to anybody else, but that's Aja Wilson in a walk.
The one thing wrong with Gabe DeVoe, and it's not wrong with Gabe DeVoe, is he's perceived by many as a one-trick pony. If the three isn't going, he's actually not contributing.
He made a lot of nice drives to the basket, layups, short jumpers in the lane. I saw a diverse offensive game as the season wore on.
Yeah, but you know, that's what he's perceived as. But to me, I go with the little guy this year. Just from the fact that they beat North Carolina, I'm going with Fletcher McGee.
Is that?
Well, your vote can be taken. Have you voted? Did you vote?
Yes.
Okay, so you're one of the 7 that voted for Fletcher.
I voted
so
for
far.
Asia. I voted for Asia.
I'm sure you
but
did.
I also want to write in Gabe.
But then again, just like Michael,
just to spite you.
just like
I did not leave the write-in capability.
Just like
in the poll.
You didn't?
No.
This is the
bad
deal.
out of you.
Just like when Karl Malone won the most valuable player, and they said Jordan should have gotten it again. They said, well, Jordan wins it every year. So I'll say Asia wins it every year. So I'm giving it
to Fletcher.
This is the same person we just talked about as being the most accomplished basketball player in the history of the University of South Carolina, regardless of gender. Also, just want to make sure you put that.
Well, somebody said that. I don't necessarily agree with that.
I said the most accomplished. We didn't say greatest. We said the most accomplished.
The most award-winning, yes.
I said the most accomplished. That's the words that I just used.
Okay. You go with that.
The words I use.
Top of the hour break. When we come back, of course, the women's game will be getting underway. We'll keep an eye on that. We're going to turn our attention to football. We've got recruiting coming up. We'll hear from Will Muschamp, Dabo Sweeney, working some baseball, reflecting on the weekend for USC and Clemson, and our post-game conversation with the coach of the South Carolina boys team that fell to North Carolina in Wilmington on Saturday night, Tim Morris. All that coming up.